I'm not a big fan. I mean, of just how I look in general. But also the framing. Okay. Can we see it? We can super see that microphone. Let's not super see the microphone. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should because I talk about geeky things. And if you guys didn't know, I recently graduated from St. Cloud State University with a Bachelor of Arts in Film Studies. Just don't look on the inside because there actually isn't a diploma yet. This looks kind of like a diploma, but it quite clearly says that there isn't one. It's coming, I promise. The reason why this is important is because of the fact that film studies is the study of film. Believe it or not. This just kind of means like an overview of history, criticism, theory of film, and that is something that I love talking about and talk about endlessly with people all the time, whether or not they asked about it. So, guess what we're gonna start doing on this channel sometimes? That's right, I want to start talking about the history of film, the criticism of film, and of course theory. Criticism itself is not, this is a good movie, this is a bad movie. Criticism is about dissecting the film, talking about the undertones of the film, talking about the historical point that the film took place, why it took place in that time, why it did well, why it did poorly in that time period of history around the world, and other things like that, talking about the subtext of said film, all those kinds of things. That is the coolest part of the study of film. To be completely honest. So if you guys have any questions about film history, criticism, or theory, leave them in the comments below. But today, we're going to be talking about the difference between cheesy and campy in films. Because there is a major difference, and I'm very excited to teach you all what those differences are. So a lot of people know the term cheesy. Cheesy just means funny, but kind of in a maybe non-intentional way. And that is actually very, very true. The big difference between cheesy and campy is, in fact, intention. And a lot of people will look at something that is campy and think of it being cheesy just because people don't understand what the difference really honestly is. And again, like I said, that's intention. Breaking the fourth wall is a type of camp. Puns in film is a type of camp. You know, so breaking the fourth wall, kind of like, I can't remember which X-Men movie. I think it must have been the first X-Men movie. It's been a long time since I've watched the X-Men trilogy, and I know there's like a lot more now, and I'm definitely not caught up on any Marvel movie. Anyway.
You actually go outside in these things?
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
That is breaking the fourth wall, kind of as a nod to the people who are fans of the comics or the original cartoon from the 90s, where both of those things were very, very obviously popular back in their times of height of popularity. That was really poorly worded. The comic book had its time of popularity, and then the 90s cartoon was very popular when it came out, okay? That's just a nod to the fans of those things, saying that that is what Wolverine wore in those forms of the story. But of course, these X-Men movies were a little grittier, they were a little bit more realistic in a lot of ways, but that's kind of how comic book movies become successful, is being serious, but also understanding that you're in a very unrealistic world and accepting that you're in this unrealistic world. So when you combine those two things, you have to incorporate camp, or else it's going to become cheesy. So camp, if done wrong, is cheesy. And then there's also the notion of if you take something too seriously, where people are kind of thrown out of that reality because it's just too far past reality, then that's when it becomes cheesy. So talking about something that I talk about a lot on this channel nowadays is Power Rangers. Power Rangers has a little bit of both. They definitely throw some jokes in there, just understanding how ridiculous they are. But at the same time, there are also moments of where they are trying to be serious, trying to carry out a very serious storyline, and it just falls very, very short and becomes cheesy. In a lot of situations, people will say that they like cheesy, just a certain type of cheesy. What you're talking about is in fact camp. And if you pay close attention to the way things are written, you'll kind of start to understand. Like I said, puns tend to be more on that camp side, breaking the fourth wall, because these are all things that are that people find innately funny, but also, like, for example, breaking the fourth wall is, if you guys are unfamiliar with that term, breaking the fourth wall means that the characters understand that they are in a movie, or they understand that there is something more to their world, that there is an audience watching them, essentially. Deadpool is a perfect example of this. Deadpool is nothing but fourth wall breaking, which is why Deadpool was so funny, because of the fact that they used nothing but camp. And you can't overuse camp. I suppose you probably could, but Deadpool, for some reason, did it right by using the entire movie as camp. And so when the serious moments did happen, your brain was able to go, well, but they also understand that this is kind of ridiculous, that this whole storyline is ridiculous, the idea of a superhero is ridiculous, the concept of this particular anti-hero is kind of ridiculous. So the serious stuff within Deadpool makes your brain be able to go, I can get on board with this drama because I can now get on board with this alternate reality. So next time you watch a comic book movie, pay closer attention to those kinds of jokes. Pay close attention to the way that the story is written, because you'll find that there is this kind of immense kind of difference in how the story is told when a comic book movie is popular and when a comic book movie is not. For example, if you take something like the MCU, which I know very little about, I mean, Endgame was spoiled for me, so, I mean, I guess there's really no point in continuing to watch, but, you know, spoilers are great. I've not really watched any of the MCU, just mostly because I'm not a huge fan of comic book movies as a whole. Like, I love comic books, and I went through a time period where I really enjoyed comic book movies, but they're just not my thing. Comic book TV shows, comic book movies, just, they're not my thing at all. I'll get to them eventually, and maybe I'll even do some reaction videos to them, since I have not seen any of the MCU, and I'm talking like I haven't seen Iron Man. So, but if you take the MCU and you take another comic book movie that was done poorly, something like Conan the Barbarian, you'll kind of notice that there's a lot less fourth wall breaking in the ones that are not as popular, the ones that are not done as well. You need a certain level of camp in order to make comic book movies work. And the reason I'm focusing so much on comic book movies is because I actually took a class called Comic Book Cinema, where we talked about this very thing. As a matter of fact, I think it was this class that really took a deep dive into the difference between cheesy and campy. There were other classes that did too, but I think this was the big one that we just really honed in on it, because it's so important, especially when you're talking about superheroes and something just super out of the ordinary. You know, you're talking about something that your brain, because the human brain is interesting. You have to be able to become immersed in a movie in order for your brain to actually comprehend the movie. So when you don't enjoy a movie, when a movie is not really your thing, is because your brain just can't really comprehend that particular world. And it obviously is based on personality, it's based on taste levels, but it's also your brain trying to actually understand and going, I can't get on board, I can't understand this, therefore I don't like this thing. And so it's very interesting. It's it's an interesting concept, and that's why I think that it's so important for you to understand that when it comes to, and it's not all comic book movies, because there are some comic books that are obviously graphic novels and comic books that are obviously very, very realistic, like Road to Perdition and things like that, which we also studied. But when you talk about superheroes, that's very, very important. A wonderful example of a film that, it's weird, because the creator of the film has backpedaled a lot. So the movie is called The Room. If you are not familiar with what The Room is, educate yourself. The Room was created by a man by the name of Tommy Wiseau. He wanted to create a very tragic movie. However, the writing is incredibly awkward. The cinematography was absolutely atrocious, and the acting did not help the writing at all. Because you can actually have bad writing and have good actors that can make the writing work and make the writing campy. But this did not happen for this film.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
I often tell people, because there are actually showings of The Room around the world. And because it is known as like the worst film ever made. So if you guys are at all curious about it, like I've told many people, the only time to watch The Room is actually if you're doing a viewing. You have to have a ton of people with you. It's not fun unless you're actually at a showing. And those of you who are over 21 or legal age of drinking in said country, you have to go slightly inebriated. It's a lot more fun that way. And you'll have to go with a red dress on, or you have to go with a tuxedo on. And if you're wearing a tuxedo, expect to play football. Those viewings are the best thing ever. Not even joking. Please find one near you. They're so amazing. But yeah, so it's got a cult following for being the worst movie ever because of just how cheesy it was. Because the writing and the acting and the cinematography were just so bad that no matter how tragic the story was, you're sitting there laughing the entire time. So when Tommy Wiseau found out that this was kind of how it was, he backpedaled a ton. It was like, oh, no, it was a dark comedy. Like, I totally meant for it to be a dark comedy. Like, it's totally meant to be a comedy. Which, if that was true, then it's very, very campy. Because it fits all of the tropes you need for a bad, stupid comedy. And by stupid versus smart comedy, it does not mean the intelligence of the person watching. It just is whether it's inherently funny or if you have to think about it in order for it to be funny. That's the huge difference. I'll talk about that in another video, I'm sure, at some point. It fits all those tropes for stupid comedy. But if it was meant to be an actual tragedy, if he's lying and meant for it to be an actual tragedy, then it's very, very cheesy. So that's a perfect film for you to watch to kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about here. Watch it once through thinking that it's a tragedy. Watch it a second time through thinking that it is a comedy. And you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about the huge difference between cheesy and campy. But please, like I said, you have to go to a showing. You have to be dressed in a tuxedo or a red dress. Expect to play football if you're in a tuxedo. And you will be given plastic spoons. Don't worry, you don't have to bring your own, generally. Sometimes you have to bring your own, but it's fine. Just understand that plastic spoons will be involved as well. And it helps to have had at least one vodka. Or hard liquor of your choosing, whatever. I hope this gives you guys a better idea of what cheesy is versus what campy is. If you guys do have any questions, further questions about it, let me know in the comments below and I can certainly make another video about this. Maybe what I'll do is compile a bunch of questions in the upcoming film videos and do a Q&A so that I can dive a little deeper with all of you about all of that. I hope this video was not super rambly because sometimes I can get rambly. That's why my videos are heavily edited. So that's all I have for you guys today. I will see you guys all next week with a new spanking video. I don't know what it's going to be about, but we're all going to find out together. Well, actually, I'll find out slightly before you because I do have to actually make and edit the video before you guys find out what it is. Anyway, I'll see you guys all next week. Bye-bye!